Okay, I'm officially starting here. Thanks again, everybody, for your patience with all these matters. I'm going to get the video as well on Telegram, streaming to multiple areas right now because I don't know if it is the storm or what was going on, but definitely appreciate all of you. So, hello. I think you can all see me now. I put on my lucky hat for this one. All right. My name is Robert Janito, and here we're going to be going over the pre-launch details on Genius. I'll give you a quick overview of what kind of materials we'll discuss. Let me make sure I'm recording this. It's recording. Cool. All right, well, YouTube wouldn't work, but it seems like this video works great. How does the video look, everyone? Are we skipping? Do we look good?
No skipping over here. You're looking good.
Okay, cool. Digital, I just heard your voice, and thank you for doing that. Just a heads up, I have my volume down all the way so that it doesn't get picked up. I'm recording this separately as well as Telegram. So this way you all have a video file and you can send it to whoever you want to. But this will be sent to YouTube since there's just a little bit of an issue. All right, cool. All right, let's start. So the whole idea of Genius is to monetize attention and intention. Remember that. And Genius here, Genius is a financial masterpiece. This hat was a gift. It was very nice. And I mean that. Genius truly is a financial masterpiece. And the Genius has taken, we've come a long way to where we're at so far. There's been 5 years of research and development. For almost 2 years, the tokenomics have been worked out, kicked out by some very bright individuals. Some of those individuals have worked on other coins in the past. A couple of them very early with Hex's tokenomics. And, myself, I've worked with, I've also dealt with the tokenomics. I've worked with Dash Core Group, got them to number 3 on the charts. I've been in the whole cryptocurrency industry for about 12 years, 8 to 9 years as a corporate officer. So, there's my background. These other individuals, our background is quite massive. And the whole idea of Genius, as you all may know, I want to give a shout out to Hex Factor 369, very awesome community member. He made a video about, let's see if I can find that here. He made a video about like the attention and intention aspect of Genius. And you can find his channel by looking for Hex Factor or just simply search Genius Token AI Smart Contract Mechanics. And so here, he goes over in greater detail, and it's pretty awesome. But here, what we have is Genius takes a very fundamental thing from human beings, their attention and intention, something that really comes from a place of value and goes back into a place of value. And in order to turn that into software, you have to have a lot of abstract thinking and out of the box. And throughout this chat that we do here for the pre-launch, we'll talk a little bit about development, a little bit about a surprise feature that I can't wait to tell you all about. I'll tell you a little bit about it here. Maybe some personal updates with myself. And really some of the biggest problems with cryptocurrencies that the whole community of Genius is solving beautifully. And as well, the people involved in development or marketing, leading the marketing, leading the development, leading the tokenomics, leading the plan behind this, and many of the whales involved. A lot of talent has come together. And a lot of these big problems that new cryptocurrencies have, all I got to say is this is amazing that it's amazing that this has come together. It is amazing that attention and intention has been, how do you say it? has been conceptualized and turned into code, turned into software. That's sweet. By the way, I saw a question pop up on YouTube. Don't know how I saw that. People keep asking me if there's an arrest warrant for me. There is not an arrest warrant for me. My guess is that these are scared Hex maxis who don't want Genius to destroy Hex. But to be frank, to be frank, the things we talk about here are going to be very interesting, very good. No arrest warrant for me, and no necessary for any FUD for this. This is one of the most exciting projects in cryptocurrency, and I'm not saying that because I'm part of it. I'm saying that because this is something that has been sorely wanted by human beings, sorely needed by human beings for a long time. And to be frank, the Federal Reserve Bank, for the United States, has been in the best position to do something like this for humanity, but hasn't. Urgh. So that's what Genius is doing here. All right, so we'll go over the biggest problems with crypto and what Genius is doing uniquely that overcomes that. And it includes what you can do with your interest in Genius to help make that come alive. Earlier I mentioned Hex as just a Hex maxi thing. I originated the HexFlex tag on Twitter, by the way, with a HexFlex Ferrari I got. And I have to say, when it comes to Genius, Genius did learn from some lessons from Hex, learn from Hex's mistakes. And we'll go over that. This is some good stuff here. But hey, anybody out there curious, you've heard it before, join Team Win. Genius has not been launched yet. It's planned to be launched for September 9th. We'll talk more about throughout this stream and AMA. We'll talk about the we'll talk about those lessons and such, right, too. And sorry, let me not get ahead of myself. Let me just move forward. But yeah, join Team Win here. Genius learned from a lot of things from Hex. We have the launch September 9th, which is a Friday at 1:44 p.m. We'll talk about the launch. Some people had concerns about launch. Really, there's no need for concerns in any way, shape, or form. Every single thing that Genius has done has been for the whole purpose of good incentives. It's been for the whole purpose of, even the very beginning of Genius, when it was just a promise token. Everything has been done for the benefit of the product itself, and using the product itself. There's no developer coins. There's no special access, special privilege. And this is pretty massive. In a lot of ways, that's what Bitcoin was. Or at least it's what Bitcoin meant to be and wanted to be. Some things about development that I would like to talk about, because I tell you, there are some amazing innovations about Genius, but most of those innovations I think can go on a different live stream, a different chat. And when it comes to different pumpamentals, different things that, pumpamentals are things for a cryptocurrency token that are like good economics. Pumpamentals are things that aid to there being value in a token. And Genius has at least 30 separate tokenomics pumpamentals. So what does that mean? That means that there are at least 30 different mathematical strategies to have Genius grow in value, and this is insane. When it comes to national currencies, when it comes to cryptocurrencies, not many of them, very few, none of them, have been hyper focused on value, hyper focused on being a asset that really does what everybody in the world has always wanted through history anyways. An asset that retains its value. An asset that remains valuable. An asset that's able to become more valuable some way over time. All right. So I have a little cheat sheet in front of me, right? Because there's a lot of topics I want to go through. And that what you hear is why, if you hear it, is why there were problems with doing this stream. All right. I can't wait to tell you about these different tokenomics items. All right, so let me give a quick update on myself. Um, I and the development team have been working like crazy. Some people have gotten sick, and there's been some little delays on stuff. I haven't gotten sick at all. Been taking really good care of myself. Um, in some ways, I've been through hell, an absolute hell. But then again, I've learned that hell really is no problem. We can all get out of our own hell. And it's been a ton of fun working on Genius. So I think a lot of you see what I do sustain, but I'll tell you a lot of things aren't really a big deal for me. But yeah, I've been through hell. It has been like a boot camp working on Genius, and it has been awesome. It's taken every piece of corner of talents, and so many unique talents. But the thing is that I do want to stress is that everybody working on Genius really, really cares about all of our safety in using this. So, like for myself, I really care about everyone's safety with this. I really care, and I've been working more than overtime and triple checking, quadruple checking the goals of Genius. Now, this hasn't been said before in the white paper, but the goal of Genius is to sustain perfect operations flawlessly for at least 50 years, and then to be able to theoretically last for 100 years. And as you can see in the white paper, there is a future-proofing Genius area. And to be frank, all immutable contracts need a way to future-proof themselves. A lot of people who are super interested in Genius happen to understand Genius very well because they somewhat understand Hex, or they've used Hex. And so Hex is an example of an immutable contract that really needed an efficient way to exodus. And we saw what went horribly wrong with Hex, the insanely high gas fees, because the truth is it really isn't that gas efficient, even though the people behind it claim it to be. And just things to be learned from that happen. So personal update on me, the stress, the working on this has been myself taking a lot of personal responsibility along with the team to ensure and simulate as many possibilities with other software that we have and that we implement to simulate and find any future gotchas. And there's so many future gotchas that happen. That's why there's been 5 years of research for Genius. That's why the last nearly 2 years have been just tokenomics development. And I think we've been developing for about 6 months now. Maybe less than that. All right. So some of the biggest problems with well, before we go on that, let me see if there's any questions in regards to that here. Will we have the same amount of tokens for people who sacrificed? Are you going to have the same amount of tokens on all chains? For the sacrifice audit, by the way, those amount of tokens, you'll be able to claim those, airdrop claim those on Binance Smart Chain and Ethereum. When it comes to Pulse Chain, we'll just have to see what happens. As we know, Pulse Chain is still not here after over a year. I think it's been over a year. And to be frank, I think all the people from Pulse Chain are just getting a huge dose of reality that making a blockchain is not easy. It's not easy. I've known many developers. I mean, I even know, like, not very personally, but pretty close, some of the original Bitcoin core developers. I know Satoshi. Just kidding. And making blockchain technology is absolutely way harder than making smart contracts. So I think Pulse Chain and the developers, they're just getting a healthy dose of, hey, this isn't as easy as you think it is. But yeah, so what happens with Pulse Chain, we're all following that very closely. But when it comes to Genius and how that will work with Pulse Chain, so many things can happen. So many things could happen. So many unexpected things could happen. There could be some bug with Pulse Chain that happens to affect Genius. Who knows? Either way, Genius will be on Pulse Chain. Maybe it gets copied, and it'll probably get copied because of the fact that I'm pretty sure Pulse Chain won't be here until at least mid-January. That's how I feel. Maybe later. Another one, do we have a concern that we're launching in 10 days, yet we don't have fully functional beta? Well, what I gotta say about the beta is, I realize people's expectations with betas. A beta, and maybe this expectation, I apologize. I think this expectation should have been put out very frontwards, which, there's been a lot of have no expectations going on, a lot of that mantra, which is really a good way to live, by the way. However, with expectations that can be given from the development side or can be given from the marketing side. By the way, everybody doing marketing for Genius, thank you all so freaking much. That's been huge. It's amazing what a community effort Genius is. But when it comes to the beta, this beta, I'm sorry to say it, it was for all of your purposes to be able to be involved in it, and check it out, and enjoy it. But this beta was also ways for the development team and for a research team, which includes me, to see Genius from different perspectives. As research, now you see when you're developing something that you're going to put out into like outer space, for example, a rocket ship or whatever, when you're developing software like this, it's a big deal. People are utilizing software like this to have better financial utility. So it's a big deal. There's a lot of unknowns in the future that you have to look into and predict. And so this beta was very much to do that. And thank you everyone for being part of this beta too. Thank you so much. It has been massively helpful. The data we've gotten from it has been huge. No personal data, of course. And like for example, in the beta, if you haven't used the beta yet, you haven't seen this, but the beta for Genius, go to geni.app to experience it, or beta.geni.app. 1 minute, 1 Earth minute equals 1 full Genius day. Now this gave us at first, it gave us excellent insight onto how to work with our gas transaction fees and stuff like that. It gave us massive insight onto exotic possibilities with Genius that we haven't thought of before. And that's the purpose of this beta. We'll likely go back to a shorter beta, but to let you know here, concerns that we're launching in 10 days yet don't have a fully functional beta. The beta has nothing so much to do with the launch. The UI though, the stuff that you all see with the UI, that is very valid. That's the type of user interface you will see. We might have a new beta tonight as well, and a UI that is more of the launch UI, or that will be the launch UI. And as far as beta parameters, there's so many parameters in our beta that you can't see. And what we're trying to find is edge cases. Because if an edge case can happen, it will happen. We're doing all this to protect things. To protect ourselves, because after all, we all want to use Genius. We want a token where we can put any type of value into it, and it can grow that value over time. So don't worry about the beta, you all. There's nothing to concern there. In fact, the beta has been massive. From our point of view, it has been beautiful and great. How do people get ready for D-Day? Is there a checklist? All right, so what you're going to want to do is, I say this, go to geni.app as soon as you hear about the launch, and then start the app, connect to your MetaMask. At first, we're only going to support MetaMask, and then claim your Genius, and then start mining right away. Now, if you don't want to mine right away, that's okay. There, you can provide liquidity, you can do a lot of things in the DeFi world. Wow. Okay, but that's a really good question. These have all been really good questions so far. I'm going to grab one more of these questions before I go into what new cryptocurrencies have to solve with Genius, and this is important stuff. It's great for all of us to know as a community, because after all, we're going to be working together once the launch happens. Before launch, all we can do is market Genius and tell other people about it, which thank you everyone in the community for doing that. I've done zero marketing except for the video that I'm doing and the videos. It's been a while, long time no see, right? And really, we all can't do more until the product is, you say it, has a lot of security review. Because while we have the finished product, except for the second surprise feature, there's two surprise features. Excuse me. First surprise feature, it's gonna blow your mind. It's great. But the most important thing here is that there's proper security review. Proper security review in DeFi, and this gets onto our topic of, I think I'll get there. Let's move on to that. The biggest problems with new cryptos. But with launching a cryptocurrency, security is more important than the development. So the engineering that happens to make the cryptocurrency token, the security side is much more important to look at. And so even the philosophy of the software development becomes important. Security has to be in mind. Security, security, security. So some of the biggest things besides security, I mean, we've all seen how important it is that smart contracts aren't vulnerable to different attacks. That's because this kind of thing needs to be. Second, let me find an app. This will be on that I get. This is why the future has to be thought of so much with planning a product. You have to know your product. You have to know the security. You can't put any risk. So there's been a lot of emphasis on that. But one of the biggest problems that cryptos don't solve also is to know their user, to know their purpose, to really know what problem they're solving. Now, when Bitcoin came out, Bitcoin really knew what problem it was going to solve. Even though the Bitcoin software itself didn't do that, but the white paper says it all. But cryptocurrencies, we need to know our user. And Genius knows its user very well. You got to know what you're solving. So here, Genius is solving the very core fundamentals of value and that value exchange and that value storage. So you need to know your user. All new cryptos out there, whether you're Icosa, Hedron, even with Hex, with Pulse Chain, which is great. Pulse Chain knows its user very well. And know what you're solving very well. Because you have to solve it much better than anyone else for your audience. So with Genius, it's for people who want passive income. And who's the audience? Really, the audience is all cryptocurrency miners, cryptocurrency investors, people who are saving, people who are looking to do retirement, liquidity providers, yield farmers. It's important. People who want a better store of value, and people who want to save for the future. This is super important, especially with the COVID times that had happened. Many people, and if you're not one of these people, please comment and let me know. But over the COVID times, that gave people a lot of time to reflect, feel their emotions, or avoid their emotions. And it gave people a ton of time to get Coinbase accounts or Crypto.com accounts, which, by the way, Crypto.com, I think is pretty sweet. So it gave people a lot of time to see these problems with money. Because after all, think about any issues you have with your bank, or think about any issues you have with finances or credit or credit cards, whatever it is, stocks, issues with stocks, problems with equities, for your 401k. Oh, great, your 401k made you $50 in the year, but your administrative fees were $49. That sucks. These are not problems with 401ks. These are not problems with, these aren't problems with the bank itself. No, no, no. All these problems exist because of problems with the money we use, which is US dollar. Well, or, the euro, or whatever national currency. There are major problems with national currencies. Now, 100 years ago, I would say that the Federal Reserve came and saved the day. A lot of people would say, burn me at the stake for that. But what they did at their time was very novel, and it did craft the fact that the US dollar's been around, is the oldest currency around. So there's an inherent problem with our money. And this problem became much more obvious when we could communicate so much quicker with the internet, right? So you gotta know your user and you gotta know the problem you're solving with a cryptocurrency. Huge problem a lot of cryptocurrencies have, and really everybody has, is an inexperienced development team. Now, Genius's team is awesome. But what I gotta say about this inexperienced development team is it happens everywhere. And I tell you all, you wanna hear something very bullish for crypto and decentralized finance? Well, the demand for smart contract developers is probably higher than any demand in all of software across the globe. Sure, you might have demand for a certain problem for a company, that's willing to pay, $50 million for it, like some budget dust for a government. But that pales in comparison to over 60 trillion, and who knows how many trillion of the economic value, gross domestic product, whatever. So the demand in the DeFi world, the demand for smart contract developers is insane. And securing those developers is really hard. Now, so Genius has secured probably a total of 12 different developers. And through that, 8 of them were the ones to use, and then 6 of them were the team, right? And now, because the Genius Smart Financial Contract is done, our team has scaled down a little bit too. But what I'm getting at is these new cryptocurrencies have to be able to have an experienced team. So to do that, your project has to be interesting. You have to have a budget for it. So that's what Genius has here. I've been paying for all the development and security stuff for Genius, out of my pocket. The sacrifice we did, you'll see that no funds have moved for that sacrifice, except to do the legacy Genius pre-token on Binance Smart Chain. But you'll see that none of that has moved because it's a sacrifice. It's like a literal sacrifice. It's not like a big pot of money for me to buy all sorts of fashion designer clothes and flex a bunch of new cars. No. So how do you keep the developers, right? I know I'm jumping around, but how do you keep the developers involved? Your project has to be interesting. The developers of Genius really look forward to announcing themselves after launch and getting some love and attention from the community. It has been grueling for them. Grueling. So why are the Genius developers, why have they been on this project? They all tell me, Robert, this is the most amazing thing I've ever worked on in DeFi. I mean, we have people who've been doing smart contract development since since MakerDAO was being developed. And they all say this is the most interesting thing I've ever done. This is really cool. And they all say, like, okay, Robert, wow, you've got a lot of experience. I mean, it's true. I've been doing software for 25 years, except the last 10-ish years. I've been hiring software developers a lot more. But yeah, there needs to be a leader. That gets into the next problem with a lot of cryptocurrencies. They focus too much on decentralization. Now, decentralization is great. We know why it's great, but there needs to be a leader. With Bitcoin, the leader was Satoshi, even though he didn't really lead the product. we saw where that went. With Hex, you have the leader, Richard Hart, and you see how that works out. There needs to be a leader. So I'm leading the development team. I'm a great leader with that. And with Genius itself, yeah, I'll totally, I'm going to be, I plan on evangelizing Genius. Probably till the day I die. Maybe like 5 days before that, I'll do something else. So, so decentralization, remember this, for new cryptocurrencies, decentralization is great. That should be how the code works. But there does need to be leadership. And by the way, thank you so much to Digital Diogenes and Mike Vulcan Hex Factor, Marco Dome, I think it's Dome. He's a German individual, for all of your leadership. And Janik, thank you all you guys for all your leadership. Marshmallow, there's people I'm forgetting. There's a lot of people, but Chrissy, leaders are needed, and Genius has leaders. All right, another big problem, the founders don't have sufficient experience to qualify their developers, or the founders of a cryptocurrency don't have the sufficient experience to qualify the security auditors. That's majorly missing. And I mean, that's what I happen to have. So it's almost like the last 25 years of my life made it to where I should be making sure something like Genius gets developed. I've worked with a cyber warfare company. I mentioned that before. I'm a software architect by trade. I was also a professional drummer for a little bit and learned a lot of cool things from that. I also used to work at a psych ward, taught me a lot of things with teens. But yeah, a lot of cryptocurrencies out there. I know it's hard to find a cryptocurrency to invest in or to use or to check out or whatever, but there are risks because these things are valuable. And where there's value and where there's risk, value could be lost. So a lot of these people, they don't know how to qualify the security auditors. So let's talk a bit about security, by the way, because that's really exciting. Because security, mentioned it before, but qualifying these people is massively important. And especially since security auditing companies, they often do not guarantee their research. In fact, I don't know much about that, but I have heard much when I worked for a cyber warfare company. Let's see. So it's an interesting problem. But for example, Vitalik Buterin, he has a strong background in cryptography, and he's leading the development for Ethereum. Perfect match. To be frank, it's why these companies can't compete with Ethereum. Now, I know the fees for Ethereum are high. I know that, and if Pulse Chain gets the same amount of usage as Ethereum, believe me, the fees for Pulse Chain are going to be more. So just a heads up. The problems that have been run into that are why Pulse Chain is around, those problems are going to happen again. But you see, it's going to be really hard to compete with something like Ethereum because Vitalik and his team, they know how to qualify cryptographers. Vitalik has a background in that. I remember Vitalik wrote an article about a massive problem with hierarchical deterministic wallets. Basically, you all have a 12-word phrase for your wallet, right? So that 12-word phrase, that was a Bitcoin proposal by Aaron Voisine, the founder of Bread Wallet, became BRD, got bought by Coinbase last year, I think. And I know Aaron Voisine personally. I love him personally. Jesus, Aaron, if you happen to be watching this, which I really doubt because I know you're busy and you're probably retired and enjoying life, not doing anything and hanging out with your family. I know that's a big importance for you. But so Aaron Voisine did this 12-word phrase. He picked all the words that would be used for it. And that created the seed for this hierarchical deterministic wallet. And Vitalik Buterin has a great article out there about a major problem with HD wallets. But because of his article today, all the wallets don't suffer that. So this is a lot of knowledge to know about an industry that is super new and requires a lot of specialized knowledge. And there's not a lot of people that have that specialized knowledge. Guess what? Genius has it. All of the people behind Genius have that knowledge. Heck, even, so Digital Diogenes, doing a lot with marketing, he has a very unusual understanding of people, marketing itself, getting the word out. He has a very unusual understanding of cryptocurrency in itself. I think he's been in cryptocurrency for more than 10 years. All right, so, and as well, when it comes to security, so Genius had a, not since the beginning, although a lot of things done in the beginning of Genius's development had security in mind, but eventually, maybe halfway through, we got on board an independent security auditor. Now, this independent security auditor was not from our team, separate person, coming in, doesn't know any of the team members, no friends, friends now, but to find problems. And this is where so many cryptocurrencies lack, not having an independent security auditor from the beginning to help shape things, to help shape what would come to be a third-party audit. So this is what Genius did. This is what we've done. It was massively expensive, but very well worth it. I mean, who cares about expenses? You know, like this is world changing. Like I've said, Genius is a financial masterpiece. All right, now inadequate liquidity at the beginning of a crypto's life cycle. When Genius starts, Genius is going to it's going to start with liquidity, with a good chunk of liquidity. Might start with $1 million of liquidity, maybe even more. I feel very strong it's going to start with at least $500,000. Interesting problem when it comes to providing liquidity, because when you have a staking token and providing liquidity, and Genius is a staking token for your mining. So you got a staking token, I'll put it over here. Look at there. And then when you have liquidity pools, you have an interesting problem, because if it's not worth providing liquidity, you may as well be staking or mining Genius token, right? It's an interesting problem that happened with Hex that did get solved. Actually, I wouldn't say it's too solved right now, because liquidity also includes having centralized exchanges on your back, like with you, working with you. So a lot of new cryptos have a problem with inadequate liquidity in the beginning, and this can kill the cryptocurrency. This has killed many projects in the beginning of the crypto, because in the beginning, if you didn't get onto an exchange, you were screwed. Like your project was screwed. Cryptocurrency projects, cryptocurrency projects and products, they're only as useful as the amount of people who are using them. Like think about computer software, like Microsoft Word. We all use Word, or some kind of, maybe all of us, but most computing people use some sort of spreadsheet stuff, some sort of document typer thing, whether it's Google, whether it's Microsoft, whether it's from Apple. These things, because so many people used them, they became more valuable, right? They helped amplify people's talents and abilities, help them do more with their attention and create things much quicker. Whatever they put their intentions on and attention, it happened. So, yeah, that all has to do with liquidity and has to do with the fact that these products need to be useful. So with Genius, we solve this liquidity problem because there's so many people, we as in the community, and whales, because it just looks so good with Genius mining that, let's say Genius mining does 20%. What liquidity provider wants to provide liquidity when they're not making 20%? You see? So you can expect there to be premiums. But so Genius, with the community, myself, we did something very much similar to what we did with Legacy Genius. So, hey, if you're a yield farmer, or you're experienced with that, or you've ever provided liquidity, or let's say you haven't, but you want to learn about it, there's a special deal. And when I say special deal, I mean some whales have pulled together to create an incentive that I'm guaranteeing for everybody. So I'm putting my trust in them, right? And then people are putting the trust to me. And if that doesn't work out, then, then all right, I'm going to be shelling out a lot of cash. The whales pooled together to allow there to be an incentive for liquidity providers. So if you're a yield farmer, liquidity provider, or you just want to learn about it, not only can you reap the rewards of providing liquidity that you usually would on PancakeSwap, Uniswap, whatever, or you reap the rewards of learning about this. And I promise you, learning about decentralized finance is it's got to be one of the most valuable things we can do for our education. But so yeah, there's incentives, there's bonuses, bonuses to get more Genius. So providing liquidity for Genius, to be frank, for this moment of time, for this next year, at least the next year, it's going to be much more worth it and much more economical for people to provide liquidity for Genius than other tokens. But to do that, you've got to register so that, we know what to do with that. So come to the Genius chat room. All of you watching this right now are in the chat room. And, ask about providing liquidity. Ask about the liquidity providing deal. All right. So by the way, I just saw a quick question about will I reveal any of the surprise features today? Yes, I'm going to reveal one of them. It could be called the stability pool, the collateral pool. It's a major pumpamental that no other token has, that no other DeFi product has. It's a major pumpamental. I'll tell you more about it in a bit. So, yep. And, finally, and this has to do with liquidity, a lot of founders, they do not know the exchange business. I've worked with exchanges. I've developed software for exchanges, for the exchange engine itself, and transactional software. Because after all, like with the early crypto world, we all had our cryptocurrency like wallets. We all had our wallets, but there was no business wallet. There was no wallet that multiple people could use together. So before Bitcoin came out with the multi-sig, like for the Bitcoin client itself, before that happened, my company was developing software to do this. And I talked with exchanges like Gemini, or exchanges as large as Gemini, Kraken. I'm drawing a blank, but many more. So the founders of cryptocurrency, they must understand the exchange business. And I understand the exchange business. Now, this is very vital because being on a centralized exchange does drastically increase your chances of, well, knowing and understanding the business of cryptocurrency exchanges is vital because you need to know their perspective to secure having something like Genius on a centralized exchange. We've talked with at least 3 different exchanges so far. So 4, I don't know. The ones I'm thinking of, could do a shout out. And so, well, basically, you got to be able to speak the same language as exchanges do, and you got to understand their needs. And once you understand their needs, you got to make these happen before you can reasonably expect the time to be worth it to even talk with these exchanges. Now, I want to point out some failures of other cryptocurrencies. The biggest one I can think of right now is Hex for getting on centralized exchanges. The biggest problem for Hex getting on a centralized exchange, trust me, I know how these exchanges think, is the origin address. It's the biggest problem. Sure, there are benefits of a benevolent origin address, but this has really been what has held Hex back for so long. Yeah, and Genius solves that. Genius doesn't have any of these issues. I know how to talk with exchanges, and you can expect that I'll continue talking with exchanges in the future. All right, so as I said before, join Team Win, join Genius. I've noticed there are times where people are afraid to get into a cryptocurrency, right? Because they don't know enough information about it. But what I gotta tell you, if you're curious about a cryptocurrency, the best thing you can do to learn about it is like to take $100 or so and get the cryptocurrency. $100 or whatever it is, 50 or 1,000, whatever is worth it to you. It will put your attention on that more. You will learn more. You'll learn more specifically because, well, now you've got to. There's lots of resources. All right. So, Hmm. Let me look at some questions here. Oh yeah, with liquidity and exchanges, you got to solve the chicken and egg problem. You got to have buyers in order to have sellers, and you can't have your buyers if you don't have sellers. So we've solved this. We've already solved this. Genius has already solved this. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that Genius is the only thing in crypto that has been bullish in this bear market. Genius right now is up at least 50x from like March, April, May, from March time into April. Nothing else. Nothing is up that much. That's pretty sweet. Yeah, I guess you can say Hedron's making a comeback. Yeah. And I'm not mentioning Hedron to shill it or promote it on this channel or this stream or whatever. I mention it because there's a lot of lessons that can be learned, and that's good. Maybe that's another problem with a lot of the other cryptos. Maybe the founders haven't respected, the shoulders of the giants that they're standing on. All right, cool. All right, so some questions we have. All right, let's see. I hope I don't repeat any here. Okay, so a question from the German community. Will there be a possibility to bridge over from Binance Smart Chain to Ethereum and vice versa soon after launch? And if yes, how? And if no, maybe in the future. Well, a bridge has to be created. And to be frank, I've never created a bridge. So I don't know. Anyone out there who makes bridges and is into that stuff, I'd love to talk with you. I'd love to talk with you after launch to give you any insights you need. I am very familiar with, of course, I'm familiar with what bridges do and inherent problems with bridges. And I have some ideas too on how a lot of those inherent problems can be solved and resolved. So I would love to talk with anyone out there who has a team that builds bridges and wants to do that for Genius. I would love to for inspiration. So will there be one? I don't know. Of course, I hate saying I don't know the future because it's so obvious. But it's just me being sincere. I'm sure there will be. One thing for sure, though, is that with Genius on Ethereum, Binance Smart Chain, Pulse Chain, maybe embedded into other cryptocurrencies in the future. One thing for sure is the chain that everybody wants to use, the chain that serves the most people, I'm pretty sure is going to have the larger value for Genius. Pretty sure. So that's one thing to look out for. When Genius is on 2 chains or even 3 chains, you could see a difference in price, and it has a lot to do with what people want. Now, last I checked, Genius was hovering in the mid 70 cents on the legacy token, the pre-token, which, by the way, for those unfamiliar, the legacy Genius token is what you can get today from Uniswap and PancakeSwap. You can buy legacy Genius token, and you'll be able to mint Genius once it's launched. This is the only way that you can secure your first day entry, should there happen to not be liquidity on day one. But I'm pretty sure there will be liquidity on day one. We'll see. So one thing that you can know for sure is, well, as I was saying though, like 70 cents on Uniswap V2, like mid 70 cents, like 75 cents on V2, 75 cents on V3. I don't know what the price is right now, but I did notice that on Binance Smart Chain, PancakeSwap legacy Genius is almost 90 cents. I think that has to do with supply and demand, of course. But on Binance Smart Chain, people are able to buy a couple dollars worth of Genius. They're able to buy $10 worth of Genius. If you do that on Ethereum, there are larger fees. So I think to be honest, I'm not a huge Binance user. like for the smart change, but I know why it's important. So for bridges, yeah, I think so. Is launch time still on time and schedule? Yes. So, with not knowing the future, of course that can change. Let's put it this way. So Genius is just like Pulse Chain is a very sorely needed thing, right? So people are using Binance instead. But just like Pulse Chain is very sorely needed, and there's a lot of demand for it already. As soon as Pulse Chain is ready, like launch it, right? Now with Genius, right? As soon as it's done and ready, like it's done, but there's still security reviews. There's even like gas optimizations being put into there. Like still, like we're neurotic about it. So you have this interesting problem where you want to release something right away, like you want to release Genius right away, because it's sorely needed, especially in this bull market, in this bear market, especially in this like terrible economic time. Yet Genius's economic time is looking amazing. It is amazing. Just look at the chart. So when something is very sorely needed, the idea is get it out there immediately. Don't wait. Yeah, don't wait. Be first to market. But you can't do that if there is potentially a security issue. You can't do that without doing proper due diligence. So therefore, the third-party security auditors that Genius is working with is Surdic. Multiple times we had worked with Coin Fabric, because Coin Fabric has a waiting list, right, for people to get into it, and we've gotten chosen twice on that waiting list. So that's a little bit of review there. But we had the independent security auditor, who there are issues. There are issues being resolved, and they'll probably get resolved before Surdic gets into it. But then you have Genius has Surdic as a third party looking at the security, and so now the thing is, though, when September 9th comes, let's say, even though Surdic started late last week, and Surdic is aware of our current security issues from our independent security auditor and from Coin Fabric. Coin Fabric, was that their name? I don't even remember. Too much stuff going on. I don't even know what. The only reason why I know what today is because it's a big deal. But so let's say September 9th comes, and Surdic's sitting there and they're like, oh, hey. Surdic felt very certain that it wouldn't take them more than 2 weeks to look at this, right? And I'm in constant contact with our representative at Surdic for any findings. And also, there's a mutual understanding of communication. Surdic understands. Much about Genius and our goals and the work that we've already done. So when it comes to, so Surdic's quote was, we feel very strongly that this will take us no more than 2 weeks, which is a small amount of time considering, typical security audits, but also Surdic seems pretty impressive, a lot more impressive than I imagined. Because when it comes to security audits, a lot of times, there's just so much. There's so much I want to tell you all, but it's a lot of information. I just want to tell you the things that do matter here. So when it comes to the launch, hey, if there's going to be a delay, like, we'll let you know as soon as possible. If there's going to be a delay, it's probably going to be just one delay, just like today with the storm. So on time and scheduled, I'd say yes. I said before that I've been going through hell. A lot of it has been that too. A lot of it has been like, oh crap, we really got to solve these things over the next couple of weeks in order to get to this next milestone. So, and by the way, the beta, thank you all again. I know the beta concerned some people. but thank you. Whatever crazy stuff we do with the beta, please don't worry. It has helped us a lot with getting ahead. All right, so cover the similarities and differences between Genius and Hex. Okay, there's a lot of differences. So I can't reasonably cover all the differences. Hex Factor did make a great video on it. Okay, so similarities. I'll tell you about the similarities because there aren't a whole lot of similarities with Genius and Hex. Let me tell you about the similarities between Genius and Bitcoin, because Hex and Bitcoin are very similar also. Well, the similarity is that how Genius is similar to Hex and Bitcoin is that with Bitcoin, there was a reward pool, an amount of rewards being given to miners every day. And what did the miners do? The miners basically ran all of Bitcoin's tokenomics and handled all the transactions. So with Genius, there are rewards every day, and there are multiple ways to do rewards. But instead of like mining for Bitcoin, which mining for Bitcoin is actually really lame, you're not doing anything useful. The mining you're doing for Genius is extremely useful. You don't have to mine Genius to get rewards, by the way. You can just call certain functions that cost you gas, but you get Genius in return. And these functions are helping the tokenomics of Genius. Sort of like with Bitcoin, there was a lot of work that needed to be done. So Hex, yeah, similar, except with Hex, you don't get rewards for calling functions. You only get rewards from staking on Hex. All right. So I think that's the gist of the similarities. The other similarities between Genius and Hex is that they're both on Ethereum. They will both be on Pulse Chain. So Hex was very novel in the way that it had a cool way of, like in Bitcoin with mining, the more computers you have, or the more ASICs now, the more machines you have, the more share you get of that reward pool. The more shares you have of the income of the company that is Bitcoin. And what was novel about Hex was being able to get a share of that reward pool to have a stronger weight, to have a stronger impact, to get more shares from dedicating more time. Now this was an innovation as far as smart contracts go, but in the real world, this wasn't an innovation. Richard Hart says this himself too, that they copied the CD model. Now, in the past, I'd had multiple talks with Richard Hart on, on like the banking world, and I was running a savings company, and I was talking with Richard Hart long ago about the savings company, and he saw it like a competitor, and I was just kind of like, I had to wipe that from his mind and say, well, this is really a great opportunity to work together. So the savings company I ran was a prototype, and and it was a very successful prototype. I learned a ton about the mindset of people that are saving in retirement and they're saving for goals in their life. I learned a lot, and I really loved it. And a lot of that experience is definitely happening here through Genius. But so the thing that was novel about Hex was just the math of how it weighted your time. Now with Genius, there's a similarity there. Genius uses time as one of the factors of your attention. So Genius is monetizing your attention. This is where something novel is. And time is a factor that has to do with that. There's a lot of things you can attend to in a certain block of time, but that's philosophy and stuff. Now, as far as differences, there's a lot. I'll be the one to say it. Genius is the superior product to Hex. Hex flexes I've done in the past, where I'd have like, $25,000 necklaces, stuff like that to flex, or my Ferrari. That's like, cool and all. And but what I'm getting at though is the biggest hex flex that I'm ever going to do is making sure that Genius is launched. What flex is bigger than doing Hex, seeing that it's going to do well? And to be frank, I had kind of like before I found out about Hex, it was about 3 years of research on money, articles I wrote about the future of the money, being involved very much on the financial and banking side of cryptocurrency issues. So I had I guess you could say I had a head start. So when I heard about Hex, someone was telling me, I was telling them about research I was doing for a asset that was meant to only appreciate. That could be possible. If we can program money, why can't we program money to be what we want it to be? Of course we can. We just have to figure it out. So when I was doing this research, I think it was I forgot his name. Somebody big in the Dash community, Dash cryptocurrency. I can't remember. I can remember his icon, but I can't remember his actual name. I was telling him about Genius, and he was like, "Oh, you mean Hex?" And I was like, "Well, I didn't. It wasn't called Genius then, but it was just ideas." And he goes, "Oh, that sounds a lot like Hex." I was like, "What are you talking about? What do you mean that sounds a lot like Hex?" And then looked into Hex. I looked into it. I understood it right away. I was like, "Oh, this makes total sense." I was like, "Wow, this was made cool." And I studied the problems that Hex ran into and did since Hex was first announced as Bitcoin Hex, and I understood it right away. And I was just like, "Wow, Hex is going to do good during this bull market." During the bull market that came up, I estimated it would at least 20x. It did 105x from when I estimated that, and so the biggest Hex flex I think that there can be is using your Hex earnings to fund the development for for the product that is superior to Hex. That is the ultimate Hex flex. It's like a mic drop kind of thing. All right, please. Okay, let me get on to another question. Can you explain this in Hex lingo to make it easier to understand? And that's a good point. No, sorry. The only reason why I'm not going to explain so much in Hex language is because there's a lot of hexagons that love Genius. And there's a lot of silent hexagons that love Genius. Two hexagons I'm thinking about that I love very much. I want to say your name, but they've unfollowed me on Twitter. Didn't block me, but unfollowed me because, the Hex community, to be frank, the Hex community sucks. They're ruthless. Hex community used to be beautiful. But so what I mean to say is that there are many hexagons that can explain Genius in Hex terms already. And please, you hexagons out there, please make videos. Like Hex Factor's made videos, and some other people have made videos as well. This individual named Dane that I went to high school with made a sweet video tutorial. But please, all of you who understand Hex, or even Sam Stoll from the early morning crypto show. I love Sam. I love that man. Please do this. Do a video and put things in Hex terminology. I can't do everything. I'm one person. And your help is valuable. Your attention is valuable. Like, all of you out there, I'm feeling a lot of appreciation for it, by the way, but all of you out there are so valuable to showing the world something different, something that has utility, that has benevolent utility. So please, those of you who know Hex really well, do videos on it. We will promote the hell out of it. I will promote the hell out of it. We, as in the community, will promote the hell out of it. And Hex Factor, by the way, his YouTube's great. He has a lot of differences of Hex spelled out. And they're not all the differences, but hey, the 2 surprise features, the one that you hear of later today, will be one of those. You know, I gotta admit, I'm trying to figure out how long this has been running for, because I can't really tell. Okay, so for like an hour. Okay, we good. Guess I could have just looked at the time, right? I'll tell you what, like, I don't even set the time on my watches because it's just like, look at this, I love this thing. Because lazy. But these, I don't have to set the time on these. It's cool. Great question though. Seriously, thank you all for asking all these questions. They are all great questions. Remember, there's never a stupid question. I guess there's stupid answers. I don't think that's true either, but don't ever think your question is stupid. Like, come on, you are all very special. Like, even us terrible people, even the terrible people out there, there's something very special about everyone, and this is where attention is important. With our attention, we can change our intentions. So with our attention, we can change our intentions. And that's actually what makes human beings extremely amazing. Not the human beings that are doing things with Federal Reserve money and stuff, but that can change anytime. All right, so next one. Jimmy Diamond, can you ask him to cover the similarities and differences between Genius and Hex? All right. Critical, please explain the share rate in detail and how it ratchets upwards. Thank you for asking, Critical. One thing I do want to say is a update to the white paper is coming soon. Now this update mainly just includes extra information because people wanted extra information. It includes other good stuff. It includes the stability pool feature that is way more cool than stability. You know, there's no real cool name for it, but maybe there is. But very important, the share rate calculation in the white paper was wrong. And maybe it was like a month and a half ago, a developer let me know, and it never got into the white paper. So I caught that recently, and I was just like, whoa, whoops. So how the share rate is calculated, the new share rate was wrong, and it was fixed. There's two formulas that adjust the share rate. Okay, so what are shares? In Genius shares are, you know, the more shares you have, the more piece of the pie you get for Genius's performance. Every day, Genius, from the beginning of launch, Genius will be pumping out at least 27 million Genius tokens per day. That comes out to like 4.2% yearly. And that is paid out to shareholders. Every day there's revenue that people can make by performing, you know, certain functions. Which, by the way, these functions that I talked before about functions for Genius that anybody can run and they get Genius in return, sort of like miners, sort of like Bitcoin miners. But I do want to say the purpose of this is mining software in the future, like Ethereum mining software, pulse chain mining software, or pulse chain software for validators. People are going to want to run the software version that is going to get them extra mining rewards. You know, I used to be in the mining industry for Bitcoin, and that was fun. I love brute force stuff, so that was fun. And thankfully, I was a big Linux nerd, yeah, when I was younger. But what I'm getting at is this actually helps the Genius ecosystem, and it will help more people become aware of Genius. All right, so the shares. So what are the shares then? When you hold Genius shares, you're getting a piece of that revenue. Cool. Now, when you have Genius shares, the only way to get Genius shares, shares of the Genius Smart Financial Contract, shares of that revenue, the only way to get it is to get the Genius token itself, put the token in the slot machine, which is the slot machine is metaphorical for the Genius software, and the software, tell the software how many days you're going to mine for. How many days your Genius tokens are going to be locked up in the form of shares, and how long you're going to have those shares for. So interesting, interesting fact, by the way, the amount of shares, remember, Genius has to last for at least 50 years and theoretically 100 years. Technology will probably be extremely different in 50 years from now, especially blockchain technology. And there might be an exodus prior to that. So for all of you that are holding onto your shares for more than 12 years, this adds a lot of security there. Want me to talk in Hex terms? Well, Hex doesn't have that. So for all of us who have the largest stakes with Hex, we're either making the worst investment in our life or the best. But I think there's a lot less risk with Genius. We'll see. So with shares for Genius, the amount of shares that will be around is a very large number. It's in the quintillions, thousands of quintillions. Who knows how many? It's a super large number. And in Hex, you have T shares. So just a little side note, since I told you what the shares are, not how it ratchets up though. But what we start with will be called Q shares, kind of like IQ. Q shares, quadrillion shares. The best time to get them will be in the beginning. So every day, so shares, to get Genius shares, to get a piece of that revenue, you have to have Genius token. And the amount of Genius token you get versus some bonuses you get, bonus shares that you get based on how much Genius token you're using, how much time in the future you're going to mine for, based on all that stuff, you end up getting shares. And those shares, they cost that time that you're promising. They also cost the amount of Genius. There's a cost to them. And that cost is your time and your money, your value, your Genius. So, so that cost increases over time. It only increases over time. Similar to Hex, except the cost is guaranteed to increase over time. So every day, there's always an increase. White paper says more about that. So yeah, the price will ratchet up more than Hex, faster than Hex. And, if Hex were to do that, I think it would be a big problem with Hex. As Hex is developed, as Hex, the software for Hex runs. But when it comes to Genius, we had to have different tokenomics, work with that and balance it. And it is beautiful. Like I say, Genius is a financial masterpiece. Decentralized financial masterpiece. Will there be code review with someone competent in reading code, going through the code line by line and explaining what each function does and how it works, like David Fetter has done with some projects and how Totino does with Maxi? I don't know. I know that it's not something I'm interested in. I wish I would have seen this question earlier, because so with our development process, all of the Genius developers are required to do peer review with one another. And then we have, the independent security auditor, which I can't wait to release our independent security auditors PDF documents. That's pretty cool. That's nice. And then Surdic auditing, but myself as well, and another tokenomics developer, a mathematician we worked with. He has PhD in math. He's probably the only one that I'm allowed to say who he is without, because the other two guys in Hex, they really don't want their name to be known. Makes sense, but they'll probably want their name to be known in the future. But what I'm getting at is, myself, I've also been a code review person, and as well Alex, the other individual with tokenomics. Yeah. So David Feeder, sorry, I think I said Fetter. David Feeder, that's what it says here. Now I'm drawing a blank, I can't remember his name. That would be cool. I would love to talk with David. Like, I would love to talk with you, man. I love Hexicans. I love people in the Hex community. They're very smart. They're very intelligent. I mean, like, everybody's intelligent, but people in the Hex community, they're very smart, very intelligent, and love to chat with them. I was so happy when Jim Rat Crypto like was telling me to come on his show, even though he was talking like a bunch of shit about me. I really wanted to get on a show, and then I found out that he really didn't want me on his show. As I was talking to him, I found out he really didn't want me on his show. He just wanted to talk about how he was inviting me on the show. Hey, Jim Rat Crypto, why don't you come on my show, man? I love you. My show. Um, but uh, but so code review, talking with people who do the code. I would love to talk with these people. Does the summarize function results into less fees in end mining? Yes. Yeah. What is the function? Why are we able to summarize these days? Great question. I'm so happy you asked that. Okay, so all right, so you know, um, Richard Hart and other Hex people, they talk about the gas efficiencies of Hex. And you know what? I'll tell you what, I know Hex's code inside and out. Why? Because, if something is doing something similar, like Bitcoin, etc., look into it. Like Bitcoin, I've looked at Bitcoin's code, which is very novel, very great. A lot of great stuff in Bitcoin source code. And Hex's code, and I understand Hex really well. But what I gotta say is, the whole Pulse chain is coming here because Hex was murdered by by the fact that Ethereum, in order for Ethereum to continue being economical and to move forward, which is best for everyone, the Ethereum team decided that when the smart contract code is reading from disk, it actually needs to be a lot more expensive to do that. And I fully agree with that. Yes, I know that my Hex Quad 5 stakes, my 5555555 stakes, have all suffered from that. But it really was necessary for Ethereum. It was so necessary. But the thing is, I guess we're getting into Hex terms now because it's a better way to understand the problem. To reduce the number of reading operations that happen, because after all, there's a very special way you have to do things with smart contracts. Everything you do is within a transaction, and I don't know how to conceptualize that for your average person, but smart contracts development is very different and difficult. It's a different way of thinking. But so here, what became apparent is that, hey, when you're ending your 2-year stake with Hex, and Ethereum gas fees are high, and you realize, wow, I'm paying $500 to end this. Let me wait for gas fees to go down. All right, gas fees went down. Gas fees are lower than they ever were. It's going to cost $200, $250. Wow. Well, I didn't make any money on the inflation rewards from Hex. Did I make any money on, I didn't make any money on the price appreciation of Hex either, because Hex is down 95%. Bitcoin didn't even drop 95% this time. Ethereum didn't even drop 95%. More people are into DeFi than ever now. To drop 95% is pathetic. Yeah, it's actually bad tokenomics. So, I'm not saying that to talk badly. I'm just saying that, like, ooh, ouch, that's what happened. It's a result of how expensive reading is on Ethereum. It has made Hex not as much utility. It has priced out so many people. So anyways, you're asking here about the summary functions. Yes, like I said earlier, the mining that you do on Genius is to do calculations for the rest of the benefit of all stakeholders. And these calculations are also done to do all the performance calculations for Genius's performance, daily performance, 10-day performance, 100-day performance, 1,000-day performance. This stuff needs to be done. This, when you're mining for Genius, you're actually doing something purposeful. So yes, the fees will be massively lower. Like if you're going to compare it to Hex, so we've compared it to Hex because there's really nobody else to compare with, and it allows people to understand the novelty behind Genius. So let's say you have 1,000 day, you have a hex stake that is 1,000 days. You're going to read from disk at least 1,000 times. You're going to read more than 1,000 times because your hex stake itself is a read from disk, but you're going to read at least 1,000 times. It's very expensive. That's 3 digits more expensive. So if it costs barely anything in Ethereum to read like 1,000 data structures, it's now 3 orders of magnitude more expensive. So 0.001 Ethereum. Is that a whole lot of Ethereum? Yeah, it's a good chunk of money. It's not something you want to just lose. But 0.001 Ethereum, all right, doesn't break the bank. But you multiply that by 1,000, and now you have 1 Ethereum. That's a lot of cash. Okay, so with Genius, instead of something that needs 1,000 reads on Hex, on Genius, that could be 20 reads. And, to be frank, it could be 1 read. It could be a single read. It could be 9 reads from disk. 9 is a lot smaller number than 1,000 is what I'm saying. What we find on average is that for all of the Genius miners, when they have to end, to read all of their performance, so that the owner of the miner, can receive your rewards, receive your interest, receive your performance rewards, whatever you want to call it, receive your return on your Genius, your return on investment, however you want to look at it. All of these, instead of there being 1,000 different reads, which costs a lot of cash, what we're finding is that on average, it's between 25 and 35 reads. No more than 40. Yeah, I think the maximum there is 40. I think the maximum reads there can be is 40. So the maximum cost to end your mining on Genius will be the equivalent of ending a 40-day stake on Hex, which doesn't cost much. And if in order to end your miner, if you had to do the processing, like for performance calculations, if you had to do that, you're going to get 10,000 Genius. So you're going to get rewarded for that. It's very economical. All right. It's cold in here. It's really cold. I wish these lights were a little hotter. Can you mint Genius from Brave Wallet? I don't know. I don't use Brave Wallet. It looks like it's a MetaMask clone to me. So maybe you can. Can you explain how you thought the Fed saved the day? Yeah. I'll still say that I do think, the United States forming was very much a decentralized effort. It was pretty awesome. But I tell you what, in 1776 or after, during that time period, if there was the computer technology we had today, decentralized currency would have happened. Cryptocurrencies would make all the forefathers very proud. Especially proud that it was probably an American invention. Another side note, all of the developers except one for Genius have all been from the United States. I mean, we were all talking about this. We're like, whoa, we're all from the US. How rare is that? Especially when it has to do with something that's so novel. And but we do have another developer who is Japanese, and he's amazing. Oh, God, he's amazing. He came in, I think, over the last month to help us really solidify things, and he's part of the math review team now. Yeah. Which, by the way, we needed a very special, Genius needed a very specialized algorithm to read as little performance, to read as little times as possible from disk. a very special algorithm was needed to do that. It's very novel. But right now, what we have is we have 10 different servers that are running some Python code, so running some software code to test our algorithm in over 40 million possibilities. So Genius is getting simulated hard. Yeah, man. I really doubt the tokenomics of any crypto have ever been looked at in such scrutiny as Genius. All right, cool. So will I reveal how the Fed saved the day? No, not really. It's a little bit off topic, but one thing I do want to say is tyranny is not 100% the reason why the U.S. dollar has been around for 100 years. In fact, how cryptocurrencies work does take inspiration from how the Federal Reserve worked. You know, in the beginning, with getting out Federal Reserve notes, people would often get paid just to sweep the streets. Now, I wasn't around during that time. It's just stuff that I heard from my great grandparents and stuff, and my grandparents, what they heard from my great grandparents. But my great grandparents grew up in that period, and I was lucky enough for my great grandmother to be alive during that. And yeah, so the thing was, people, based on their attention, sweeping dirt on the road, didn't matter what job they had, they would get Federal Reserve notes for that. That was very important. It was very important for the psyche. But there's other reasons. Thank you for asking. It is a good question. Let me see. Will Surdic finish its audit until launch, or will get postponed after launch? That's impossible to know. If Surdic doesn't find anything major, like if Surdic finds anything minor, chances are we already took care of it, and they can look at our latest code. Because remember, already take care of it. We've had an independent security auditor working with us for quite a while, and reworking with us when we had to refactor the code. Because sometimes when you make the code, you got to change it in different ways so that it can serve the purpose it needs to serve. Especially with Solidity, there are many interesting constraints for the programming language for Ethereum for smart contracts. So chances are whatever Surdic finds, we've already fixed. Like there is a major problem that has to do with, for those of you who are aware of it, it's called like a re-entrancy attack. There was a very creative one that our independent security auditor found, and I don't know if Surdic will find that, because I'm pretty sure it was fixed before Surdic really got the code in their hands. So, yeah. So this question is: will Surdic finish its audit until launch? Will it be postponed? Like, so if Surdic doesn't finish their audit, though, if they don't finish their audit, then it'll probably be good not to do the launch on the 9th. Because if they don't finish their audit, that's actually going to be a bad sign. They may have found something like, they do, I'm sure they do automated tests. Well, I know they do. They do automated tests, but if it's delayed, or like if Surdic says, hey, we're not done, I'll talk with the rep. It's probably going to be something that was found manually that is going to be very important to make sure that we have it already handled. So, of course, this is where us and Surdic communicating back and forth is very valuable here. And that's what we're interested in finding. We're interested in finding something that we don't know about. So, if there is a postpone for launch, I doubt it would be any more than a month postponed. This is good information for you all to know. Not doubt. I am more certain than anything that I'm certain of, even more certain than who I am as an individual, that the longest any delay could possibly happen would be a month, maybe a week. But I do still feel very confident with the 9.9 launch. Thank you for asking. Okay, LP deal. Will users be able to move their forked liquidity position on Pulse Chain? So when it comes to, so for people who are already registered with the Genius community to become liquidity providers, for those of you who have already registered, thank you very much. we're almost halfway to, to a goal of $1 million, and really 1 million point something is the most we can do with the amount that of rewards that that whales pulled together to incentivize people with. But when it comes to all of these really weird edge case situations, someone from the community named Errol, he is making like a declaration page that goes in deep detail of our declaration of what things won't be honored for bonus A and bonus B for the liquidity deal. So for those registered liquidity providers, there's a kick-ass deal going on. There's it's an agreement thing that you sign to. I think I gotta go this way. If you're interested in that, come to the Telegram community, talk with us about it, and yeah, get onto that. Let you all know that there's a declaration page being worked on, which is really just like, hey, from the community, we declare that, we're not going to honor these certain type of actions for a bonus, and that is just because, to answer your question, when it comes to forked liquidity position on Pulse Chain, it's because we really can't know until Pulse Chain comes out what to do, right? So, for this incentive, the community is working together to agree on what is best for liquidity providers and what is best for Genius and what is best for everything, and that'll be figured out, and that'll be on the declaration page. How do I provide liquidity? Yes, come on into the main room and ask, yeah, how do I provide liquidity? You'll get invited to a room just on liquidity, and you can see it. What's my estimate on Genius? I don't know what kind of estimate. I'm sorry. Let me think of some estimates. I don't know. Can we use mining Genius as a full-time job? Just looking for a job to be my own boss. Probably. Let me take a short little break here to show you this gift. Check that out. So from the German community, sent me some of these hats, and I think it's pretty cool. Like, I really don't wear hats a whole lot, and people are getting me hats and stuff, and I love it. Especially love this. I don't wear a whole lot of hats, but dang, this looks smooth. Yeah. And also, thank you, Marshmallow. I have these. Check that out. I gotta cover my face. So this is that's the Genius Eagle and Lion. See that? And then on the other side, says, "In Genito we trust, Genius Eagleon." That's pretty cool. But I tell you what, there's something I want to do with these. If you make one of these coins yourself, you show them to me in the future or anything, or there's any special events, whatever, think of it like a free pass, So we'll do things like that in the future. So can we use mining Genius as a full-time job? Well, I mean, here's my personal strategy. We all spend money on things that depreciate in value. Like when you buy a new pair of clothing, you may as well just burn that money. But hey, you're going to use the clothing, right? The point is, we buy all sorts of things that once we buy it, the value goes away because we use it. And there's a lot of things that we don't really use. Maybe we buy it for emotional reasons, right? So what I think is a great strategy, and this is something that I did starting like a couple of years before, maybe a year before I found out about Bitcoin. A great strategy, I thought, is instead of like, if everything you buy is something that loses value right away or loses value over time, why not buy things that will potentially raise in value, right? Like long ago, I was buying Bitcoin. I was mining for Bitcoin. It's driving revenue. So I think that's a good tactic here. So if you take some of your spending on things that are just going to depreciate in value, they're just going to like go away, you won't be able to create value from it. Start taking a little bit of your funds, figure out a way to create value from it. Maybe it's something you do that you charge a service for. Maybe it's an investment. Maybe it's Genius token, right? Because Genius token, you can take any amount of value convert it to Genius token, and then derive performance rewards from that Genius. So Genius is like a way for anyone on Earth to get passive income. They need value and time to do that. So their own time and attention have a lot to do with it. But hey, whether it's $2 worth of value, $5 worth of value, $100 worth of value, you can use that with Genius to generate passive income. So yeah, if you're struggling financially, the best thing you can do is find ways to change your spending habits to be on things that will help with that. And that completely changed my life. Like on my dad's side of the family, I guess there were a lot of like really successful business people on my dad's side of the family. And my mother's side of the family was a lot of like medical people. So like I have this very unusual amount of knowledge in the medical world for somebody who has barely been in there just for a little bit of time. But what I'm getting at is these habits of buying more appreciating assets instead of depreciating assets. That habit, hey, stop buying the things that don't buy furniture. Like I once had an apartment. I had no furniture. Yet I had 3 facilities where there was nothing but Bitcoin miners in there. I had no furniture. The furniture wasn't going to get me revenue. So doing this habit brought me far beyond where my mother or father had ever been financially, and probably far beyond anyone on my mother's side of the family that I'm aware of, and probably also far beyond anyone on my father's side. So, so just a little habit like that can change a lot of things. I hope that inspires you. I hope that lets you realize like this is something you can do. You can put your attention on the fact that you might spend too much on depreciating assets, and then you can change your intention to change your habit a little bit there. What chains will first be launching? Yep, Binance Smart Chain and Ethereum. How will Pulse stacks work if Pulse is a year out? Yeah, the Pulse chain stuff just has to be figured out. No extra incentives for Genius Pulse sacrificers. The incentives when it comes to Genius are every incentive for Genius is something that pumps Genius more, is something that adds value to Genius. So any incentives are the simple fact that even in the Genius Smart contract, all incentives in there are for the whole sake of a healthier market and for the full sake of driving value, and for people who want to give up their value, that gets redistributed. And we give up value all the time. Remember, buying depreciating assets does that. Right. Let's see. Well, I think we might need to get to talking about a surprise feature here. This is very general information. Yeah, if you want to understand Genius like a lot more in depth, just read the white paper a bunch of times. You'll always pick up new information from it. And yeah, just read it a bunch of times. Because, when you read something in one pass, you might not remember everything. But you might have to remember certain things in order to understand other things. So when you read something over and over again, it's really helpful. Okay, so for liquidity, okay, I answered that. All right. Can you provide, okay, that, yep. All right. Well, this is looking good so far. All right. Can I mint my Ethereum Legacy Genius on September 9th. You can mint. So what that means is, okay, remember, if you have Legacy Genius, if you have that pre-launch token, you're going to be able to have Genius, and you're going to want to mint, you're going to want to use your Legacy Genius as soon as possible when the official Genius contract goes live, when launch day happens. You're going to want to use it as soon as possible because Legacy Genius has a sweet bonus. All right. So as soon as Genius is launched, you will be able to use the Genius app, the Genius DApp. Go to geni.app, geni.app. You'll be able to use that. And that app, what it'll do is it will burn your Legacy Genius. It'll take it out of existence. But in turn, it will create new Genius for you in the form of a Genius miner. So you can get some of the first rewards ever. And those first rewards, you're never going to get a better share rate. But you'll be able to choose how many days you want to do that for. Minimum of 90 days. All right. All right, so thank you all so much here. I'm not going to end yet. Let me tell you about the surprise feature. Yay. There's 2 surprise features. The second surprise is going to be awesome, but the first surprise is just as awesome. All right, so let me get a second here. Look at that. I've been drinking this water for like almost 20 years. Love it. Let me whip this out too, because, oops. All right. So this is what I work with for the developers. All right. First surprise feature. Well, the surprise feature. It's called the stability pool. And the stability pool in Genius, the stability pool is it's a pool of collateral that is used to back Genius. Sort of a way similar to what the Federal Reserve did, but different. Very different. Way better. So this stability pool, let me get to, got an outline on this because if I, this is a, so the stability pool, what the stability pool does, one, we'll be able to say like, hey, Genius is backed by US dollar. That would be pretty cool. US dollar coin or DAI, DAI, the decentralized stablecoin. So Genius will also have collateral backing itself up. But what is the point of this here? Remember, everything that happens with Genius has been done specifically and very intentionally to benefit everyone. And in the world we live in today, a lot of magical things are happening with finance. The only reason why a lot of magical things are happening with finance is, well, a lot of people when they heard about Bitcoin for the first time, or they hear about these other cryptocurrencies, they're like, this sounds way too good to be true. Like, this sounds way too good to be true. Well, it's because the math is different. You see, the current financial world we have has its rules and has its math, and it has its regulations. But in the decentralized world, the regulations are the code. The regulations are the software. I guess you could say the regulations are the blockchain itself. So this is a totally new, different world where new rules of finance can be made. Not only can new rules of finance be made, created to serve people and serve people better than all systems that exist in the traditional finance world, and do it better because human beings don't have to be hired for these monotonous purposes, for the monotonous work behind finances, financial auditing. So the decentralized financial world has a lot of financial magic, a lot of magic stuff going on, magic, but it's real. It's just different. It's exotic compared to this traditional world. And for you that are watching this, like, congratulations on being involved in this. Like, this is the future. This is just as much of the future as the internet was when people were talking about the internet in the beginning. It was just as much as the future as people who were talking about computers in the beginning. You know, you'd have people like Steve Jobs talking about computers, Bill Gates, right? And people from IBM. And the people from IBM, they're so old school that they couldn't serve new people. But you see, like, even people like Steve Jobs were laughed at because they were laughed at because people couldn't see the future. Now take this for example. Take this iPhone, right? Here's my iPhone. I do my iPhone completely naked. I don't care if I drop it. I think they're sexy. They're beautiful. But the amount of technology in here takes crazy knowledge in changing the rules. So if you were to hear about a device like this 50 years ago, you'd have been like, that's impossible. So the fact that you're in DeFi today, you're in a great position. You're in a great position to be in decentralized finance because we can change the rules. And the Genius stability pool here does that. It changes the rules. It is definitely the most novel thing in Genius. So I'm going to have to read from some notes here. This will be in the white paper soon, maybe by the end of the week. But the Genius stability pool is a system where people can borrow Genius tokens in the form of a minted advanced miner. End users must put up collateral in order to borrow the newly issued Genius debt, and that collateral is decided and approved by the OA grantor. So basically, the origin address can approve collateral. The origin address, by the way, can change itself to be a different address, which can be a DAO, can be a smart contract in the future. And really, that's the idea behind it, if that happens. So instead of what this means is, a lot of things change tokenomics, like tokenomically, economically. A lot of things change economically from something like this. So if you have a current understanding of Genius from the white paper, the stability pool can sound like, whoa, how are you going to manage all those changes and what's going to happen? Oh, it was done. In fact, so what the stability pool does, let me just tell you the magic of it instead of the details. What the stability pool does is it's able to offer collateral to people. Well, it does two things. One, it incentivizes people to put collateral into the Genius smart contract. How does it do that? Well, let's say the open market price of Genius is $1 per Genius, right? The stability pool will have a certain price for Genius that it will offer to sell you Genius for. So for example, you can buy Genius on Uniswap. And let's say the price after fees comes to $1.02. And you look at the stability pool, and the stability pool says, hey, give me collateral, and I'll give you Genius for an average price of $1.10. You're gonna be like, $1.10? Oh, that's okay, I'll buy it from the market. I get a better deal from the market. Okay, get a better deal from the market. So, nobody's gonna take a worse deal. So how the stability pool incentivizes people to deposit collateral or to buy Genius from the stability pool is the price that is offered slowly decays over time. And eventually, as it slowly decays, it gets to a price that is lower than the market price. So eventually, you go to the Genius app. You see on Uniswap, cool, I want to buy some Genius today. The open market, it's $1 per Genius. The price isn't going to start at $1, but it'll get there. I think it will. We'll see. But then you look at the stability pool, and the stability pool is telling you, hey, give me collateral, and I'll give you all the Genius you want. Well, there's a certain limit for an average of 96 cents. Or for an average of $1. And you're looking at the open market. The open market's $1. But let's say you're a whale and you wanna buy like $5 million worth of Genius. You can't always do that without moving the price up, and especially in the beginning. So the open market value, $1, might buy $5 million worth of Genius, moves it up to $1.20, moves it up to $1.05, $1.10, whichever. The stability pool will tell you, hey, yeah, you can buy up to 10 million. Give us $10 million of collateral. And the stability pool will issue you Genius that is, let's say, an average of $1. So it's a huge deal. Now, this huge deal, you might think like, any problems you think of, let me just promise you they're solved. So if you have any questions on this, please post the questions into Telegram, and I'd love to answer these. Oh, let me see something here for that. I'm just going to let you all know in the room as well. Okay. All right, so the stability pool, so now a lot of benefits happen from this. One, there's now like $5 million of liquidity available. But what about this extra Genius supply? Isn't that going to be a problem? Or what about these extra rewards and inflation, the 4 point whatever percent per year? Isn't that going to become a problem? No, because this Genius is considered debt. So it's a long story, but basically, instead of it becoming a problem, it becomes more of a solution. And so the stability pool, it'll tell you, hey, give me collateral, and I will give you Genius in the form of a miner. So, you're mining with it. You can't just dump it on the market. And so basically, you get a better deal for your Genius miner. And your rewards that you get are Genius rewards. And when you're miner, there's a different rule. You're going to love to see this in the white paper. But you can't end a miner early if it is collateralized. And other cool stuff. So there's an incentive for people to put collateral into the stability pool. And there's an algorithm, very simple algorithm, that moves the price of what people can buy this Genius for, or how much Genius they get by putting collateral into the stability pool. And one of the functions of that is, if there's extra selling pressure on the open market, people are selling Genius, they can also use the stability pool to gain that value. But here's one thing that happens. And here's one thing that happens. Let's say the market rate here dropped to 90 cents. Or, let's say it didn't drop. Let's say over time, just from this collateral, like getting locked up and stuff, and people putting in more collateral at a higher price than the market because it was more economical. Let's say the stability pool is going to give you $1.20 for any of the Genius that you give it. So you have Genius, you have liquid Genius, and the stability pool, where it once tells you, hey, here's how much you can buy Genius from the pool, it also tells you, here's how much you can sell your Genius to the pool, and here's how much you'll get. So if you run into a situation where the stability pool is offering you $1.20, like let's say the collateral in the stability pool is US dollar coin, where you're going to get $1.20 per Genius, and the market price of Genius, let's say, is still at $1.05. Well, this incentivizes people to buy on the open market, which will add buying pressure to the open market, to gain from that arbitrage of selling into the stability pool, of settling other people's Genius debt in the stability pool. All right, so how does the price of the stability pool raise, though? That's the cool part. So, when you settle debt on the stability pool, you pay a small fee. The miners, in fact, the people who got a better deal for mining, they pay a fee as well. And this fee, where does it go to? The fee doesn't go to the origin address. The fee doesn't go to what we call the origin address beneficiary. The fee stays in the stability pool. So effectively, from that fee staying in the stability pool, let's say the fee was 1.6%, the price that is being offered to other people for any unsettled debt has now climbed 1.6%. So wherever the market is, the stability pool's price is rising because of this. Now it'd be great to give this fee to the miners, right? But no, this fee is internally there, is in the stability pool, not given to miners, but instead to give miners and other people, you know, liquidity that, you know, they can sell in the open market, but they can also get a definitive amount from the liquidity pool. There's a lot of fundamentals in the stability pool. So like, and this collateral, by the way, is just locked in there. This collateral isn't actually used for anything other than to back the value of Genius. And so, you know, remember with collateral miners, you can't end early. But with collateral miners, you know, remember there's things that people can run into with, like, you know, late ending fees. There's you know, there's things that can eat into that collateral for that user. If a user pays late fees, the late fees first come out of the collateral, which really means that when they end their miner, they'll get a little less collateral than they would have gotten before, but that little less, that difference, remains in the stability pool, thus pumping the price the stability pool offers people to settle the Genius debt. And for people with liquid Genius, they can do that right away. They can get an arbitrage opportunity. You know, after all, if you have 1 million Genius and you can sell it to the stability pool, you could rebuy it from the open market, and maybe you have a 1.1 million Genius. So this is a cool tactic. Most Genius users are probably going to be locked into miners because of the huge incentive. So what this does is this is something that will incentivize open market buying pressure. It will also incentivize people to use their collateral. And this is great for people who, let's say there's people out there who they don't believe in Genius's tokenomics. You know, they're US dollar maxis, so they use US dollar coin. They're really, you know, when you have a large chunk of money, you're gonna want to use, when you're a whale, you're gonna want to use things that have a lot more battle tested code, right? So yeah, so the stability pool is completely decentralized, by the way. Of course, it's part of the Genius Smart financial contract. Yeah, so one more fundamental that I don't think is going to make sense verbally, but I'll try telling it to you. I mean, there's a lot more about the stability pool. But so the public can always settle Genius debt on behalf of these Genius miners. So, you know, if you get a Genius miner, you're happy because you got a better deal. You're also happy because when you get your principal back, you get the collateral minus a small fee, and you get your Genius performance rewards, the ROI. You know, so for people that want to live in safe US dollar coin world, this is an excellent option. However, with Genius's performance, you might not get your collateral in the end. But the one thing that you are guaranteed to get by using the stability pool, one thing you're guaranteed to get is a better deal than you would have gotten by purchasing directly from the open market. Does this mean it's going to replace the open market? Definitely not. The stability pool's algorithm, works to, the intention behind algorithms is to promote purchasing activity, is to promote buying pressure on the open market, while also backing the value of Genius via another collateral. Okay, so with your Genius miner, your collateral miner, as people from the public choose to pay off your Genius debt for you, what you have is you end up having like a percentage of your debt that's already paid. And that's cool. You know, you don't have to pay that when you end the miner. You get the collateral instead. Or or whatever. I gotta think a little bit. So, the more people from the public that are getting a benefit from settling Genius debt with the stability pool, buying it on the open market, getting some arbitrage, the more of a percentage that everybody's debt is paid for, it becomes a greater incentive then for somebody to put in more collateral. Why? Because of how the tokenomics work. And the white paper will explain it. But let me try verbally. So imagine that, $1 million was used to collateralize a Genius miner, and it's earning rewards in Genius, right? It's earning rewards from Genius. The performance rewards are paid in Genius, and there's $1 million in collateral. Now, for it to be worth somebody to pay that debt off for you, either they got to be in a desperate situation for liquidity, or they're getting an arbitrage opportunity that has pumped the price up. So let's say half of that debt is paid for that miner, $500,000, right? And then you have some other whale or person. Let's say somebody that has $1,000. They look at the stability pool. The stability pool is offering $1 per Genius. Open market is offering $1 per Genius. Okay. But then this person who comes along with $1,000 also sees that half of the debt is already paid for. Well, when you come into the stability pool, if half of the debt is already paid for, then when you put in $1,000, get the amount of Genius into a miner, half of your debt is already paid for. Not exactly half, because the numbers change a little bit with your 1,000 that you put in there. If somebody came and put in another million, my math could be wrong, but a quarter of your debt is already paid for. You see? So, just the mere action of you buying from the stability pool raises how much the stability pool is going to offer to people. So the stability pool, by user actions, is constantly figuring out what is it worth for somebody to put collateral in here. And from that worth of what they put the collateral in, it's a volume weighted average of the price that the Genius was given to people from the stability pool and the amount of Genius that was actually issued. And this value pumps upwards from fees being left in the stability pool. I hope I'm making sense here. And then so any gaps this creates in the stability pool being higher than the open market, not only does it also create incentives for people to put in collateral, and then incentives for people to resolve the debt. I'm just going to stop right there because it's quite involved. And, I've explained it most of the time that I've explained this over the last 4 months has been to developers, and has also been to people like Alex who are looking out after the tokenomics along with myself. And I haven't had much practice of explaining this to your average user, to your average person. And I think the best explanation is going to be, one, the white paper, but two, I think the other best explanation is going to be people using this and seeing it, how it happens right away. So the stability pool will be in the next beta. Maybe the beta tonight. And the real thing that you're all beta testing is not the smart contract side of the stability pool, but what you're really beta testing is the UI, and also and the smart contract, with the smart contract having different parameters that you can't really see, but different parameters that are our way of not stress testing it, but our way of pushing the tokenomics to the max. The best way that anybody's been able to see that so far has been the best way for anybody to see that so far has been the fact that every Genius day, or sorry, every real Earth day that goes by, that's like 1,440 Genius days, right? Like that's not reality. But your beta testing of this allows us to do that. In the beta, there are auctions. I believe the UI actually works with that on this next beta coming up. But on this next beta, you'll be able to see the stability pool. And by using it is going to be the best way to understand it. However, there's a lot of you who are really interested in math, really smart, really intelligent people, and you'll be able to translate this to other people. You know, you'll be able to tell them the value proposition. You'll be able to tell them the utility of that. And this stuff is being launched September 9th. This is right around the corner. So this is a very bullish feature. No DeFi has this feature. And this is a major pumpamental. Remember, Genius itself has at least 30 different pumpamentals. These are all strategies to bring more value to people and incentivize people to bring more value. How do you incentivize people to do things? You give them value. That's how. It's like a chicken and egg problem, right? But, so yeah. Let me check out some questions here. Where does the Genius come from in the stability pool? The Genius it's newly minted, and anyone who pays that debt, or when your miner ends, sorry, let me start over. When in the stability pool, right? Where does the Genius come from? Okay, stability pool. When someone puts collateral in the stability pool, the amount of Genius, let's say it's 1 million Genius, becomes the principal of a Genius miner. That Genius miner, when it ends, the smart contract ensures that all of that principal was used or is used to have the Genius go back into the stability pool. So effectively, that Genius that got minted and locked away gets burnt. So it never reaches the circulating supply. People from the circulating supply or the open market can buy Genius and settle the debt. When they settle the debt, it gets burnt. Right? It gets burnt. And at most, 98.4% of the collateral comes back to them. And the other 1.6-ish% remains there as pumping the settlement price upwards, thus having an effect on the open market too. So the Genius that comes from the stability pool never touches, like when you do the accounting for this, it never actually touches the circulating supply. Now, what this does do, right? What this does do is it does have extra rewards come out yearly. The reward schedule for Genius is like 4.236% annually. And annually is like every 360-day cycles, not 365.25, which is how long your days are per year, including leap years. So, so you could say there's extra inflation, right? That extra inflation, the extra amount that gets inflated, because the stability pool has a maximum amount that will get minted into a Genius miner, and then there's extra interest from that. But ultimately, your miner has shares the reward pool, and while the rewards is 4.236% annually, not including any penalties, or late penalties, you as the miner, you're always going to get more than 4%, unless you end early or unless you end late. You're always going to get more than 4%, unless you're a simple miner, right? And that's only if every single person is mining, which we already know won't be liquidity providers. If every single person is mining, and if no genius has been burnt, because the more genius that gets burnt, the more the inflation, the more the rewards, the more miners earn rewards, especially the longer they have run rewards. Now, if you're a Hexican and you do Hex, you also understand this as a rising price of T-shares. Like with how Hex simulates compounding interest is the same way that Genius simulates compounding interest, but in a different way, and especially with a stability pool. But here with the stability pool, those extra rewards that come out ahead of schedule, ultimately when that Genius is settled, the cost for it to be settled, it actually brings the Genius rewards to less than 4-point-something% per year. But as an individual miner, that doesn't mean, the individual miner is always going to make more than what is paid out entirely. All right, if that doesn't make sense, I'm sorry, but I think Hexicans, that will make sense for them. Can you auction off the loan that came from the stability pool? Good news, yes, you can. Is the collateral used for something? Nope. I mean, it is. The collateral is used to pump the price of Genius. But you see here, just because I say pump the price of Genius, please don't underestimate that. Please don't, let me tell you what to please do. It's not really like the end result is higher potential for a pumped price for Genius. That's the end result. The potential is significantly higher. And after all, how we accomplish things in life are by aligning ourselves with all the potentials. But what it's doing fundamentally is not pumping the price. Because after all, we can't just pump the price of something. We can't just say, Ethereum, be up $2,000 more. We can't just say that. We can't say, you, whale. Yeah, you. Buy $6 billion worth of Ethereum now. Because it's not economical for the whale. So what Genius does is it finds economical DeFi ways within the contract, and within the contract in ways that is affected by the outside world without being included in the outside world, but guessing the outside world, intelligently guessing it based on user actions. Combining this in incentives. This is something you got to pay attention to, right? Combining this with incentives. And what you get is a higher potential of a pumped price. Sure, are people going to liquidate? Yes. Are they going to liquidate early? Probably not, because of the penalty multiplier. So, if you're scared of Genius's high earnings potential, that's what the basic miners are for. By the way, simple miners have been renamed to basic miners. And the basic miners, you can't lose your principal unless you're late. But so you see, is the collateral used for something? Yes. It's used within these tokenomics to be a way to incentivize people to do things. One of the ways is the collateral is there, which one helps as a belief system. Money is very much a belief system. That's why you have religions formed around cryptocurrencies. You have your Bitcoin maxis, your Ethereum maxis, your Hex maxis, which unfortunately are some of the dumbest maxis out there. I'm a Hex maxi, by the way. And as soon as Genius is released, I'll be a Genius maxi. Not really. I'm extremely open-minded, and I want to be. But the collateral, its use is one in a belief. Because people see, oh, it's backed by this. Two, what happens if liquidity providers go away? And by the way, liquidity providers actually benefit from this. There's more trade opportunities, there's more arbitrage opportunities, and that's how liquidity providers make their returns. So the collateral is there kind of like as a carrot being dangled in front of somebody. However, the actions of this person, besides following the carrot, they have benefits. Now, what is the end game theory? That's the important part. What is the end game theory? What's going to happen in the end, right? Well, what's going to happen in the end is really the same thing that you see with, with cryptocurrencies that are novel and are used. As we all know, the more a cryptocurrency is used, the more something is used, the more value it is giving to humanity either way. Photoshop, used by tons of people, has made Adobe rich, has made Adobe's investors very rich. It has made the people who are using Photoshop ways to derive passive income, except it's not passive because they're doing their work to do it. Unless you're one of those advanced Photoshop guys that's always running batches of stuff. So Photoshop is like a renderer for you, but you get the idea. Does the stability pool exist to avoid trading open market and do P2P at an auction? Does the stability pool exist to avoid a trading open market? No, it doesn't avoid to avoid it. It avoids the stability pool. The existence of the stability pool is to supplement the open market. Yeah. So, for example, when you have liquidity, when you have collateral in the stability pool, that's collateral that can't disappear. Because after all, if a coin has, let's say, another problem with a lot of new coins, right, is their liquidity. Thankfully, there are decentralized exchanges so that any coin can get liquidity and any coin can have a better chance to show itself. But when you have an open market and you have people using it, what happens if all your liquidity providers disappear? Well, the more liquidity providers you have, chances become lower and lower of that happening until a better product comes out, right? And hopefully you can exodus when there's a better product. But so the stability pool, think of it like a liquidity provider who can't pull out. They only pull out when they serve their purpose. Liquidity. So by the way, at the moment, I don't really know the count. I did, but I heard it was over 70, that we have over 70 liquidity providers for Genius so far. These are liquidity providers, by the way. Like, Genius isn't even out yet. This is liquidity providers who have registered to become a liquidity provider and put up cash. So, put up cash to basically be like, we're definitely doing this. Yeah, we're definitely doing this. So they're not going to pull out. If they pull out, okay, fine. But versus all those other newer cryptocurrencies out there, there's going to be at least 70 liquidity providers. That's awesome. And the stability pool, whatever collateral's in the stability pool will be a great buffer, will be an excellent buffer for, raise my hand like I'm going to use it. I'm going to do a spell. The collateral pool for the stability pool, the collateral is kind of like a buffer. Whales can sell big amounts into the collateral pool. And by the way, into the stability pool. And by that happening, it has a growing incentive for more people to put in collateral. There is a limit to how much collateral can be in there at a time, by the way. And that limit, it has to do with the Genius supply, and it also has to do with the price of Genius. All right. I think I got the whole point across on there. You're all going to like the white paper. The white paper will probably be out after the beta, because most of what's written about the stability pool is written in the form of technological specifications and charts, like lucid charts, like logic charts and flow charts. And, I gotta say, the stability pool was one of the very first inventions of Genius, behind Genius. But there was a big problem that wasn't solved. And it didn't get solved until about 3 months ago. So this is why it wasn't in the white paper in the first place, to be frank. There was a big problem in the prior conception of the stability pool. And that problem was how do you incentivize a user to put in collateral? How do you have the stability pool continuously incentivize people to put in collateral, even if people are settling the Genius debt? Well, and the other problem was actually kind of simple, but the other problem was, how do you price it? How does the stability pool, how do you have an artificial intelligence figure out a price to do this for people? And the algorithm for that ended up being extremely simple. But about 3 months ago, an idea came to me for this, and I shared it with the other person who had been involved in the tokenomics for a long time, the other person, Essence, that I mentioned earlier. Excuse me. Shared it as well, to the Hex guys. And they're just like, wow, really? That got solved? I'm super busy right now, sorry. And another one was like, wow, that's cool. Like, I'd love to hear about it later. I'm having a good time. So the PhD in math, and he's also an engineer for, I think, like, it's not mechanical engineering. I think it's like thermal, whatever. And I don't remember. I should ask him. But he's also an excellent Python developer. All the math people today, they do Python, MATLAB, and stuff like that. And so he was like, yeah, okay. All right, these are new ideas. Yeah, all right. And so simulations were built from there. But yeah, this was a very unsolved problem. But it was still a big birth to incentives and human attention and intention. It was big birth to Genius. And it was kind of depressing that the big birth of Genius, well, it wasn't depressing, it was exciting. These original ideas, right? Like, as I started talking with other people about 3 years ago to get their interest, talk with them about it, have somebody tell me, oh, you mean Hex? I'm like, what the hell is Hex? What the hex is Hex, man? That strategy wasn't going to work because we couldn't solve something like that. It hadn't been done before. Some magic had to happen. Some mathematical magic had to happen. And but all this other inspiration came from it, and it was amazing. But then I tell you, holy carp! The fish carp. When a solution came, it wasn't even called stability pool, but when a solution came to how to incentivize and create, birth from creation, market arbitrage without having an oracle, because oracles can be a problem, or whatever, without having an oracle, but having it be in a smart contract. That was insanely exciting. And lots of new math problems were born because, after all of our simulations for Genius had to be run again. And we're talking about, we could have more servers, but we're talking about 10 different servers that are running 24/7 to prove what we're doing and to see how crazy the tokenomics can be broken. And instead, they're working beautifully. And a big core to this is phi, the golden ratio. The golden ratio in the universe is very magical. It's beautiful. And you know what? when you use it in your application, you can find very beautiful things too. So, yeah. So anyways, luckily, well, not luckily, but because of all of the sheer amount of work that had been done prior over the last 2 years, or at least before development started, all of the Python scripts and etc. that, all the spreadsheets, Python scripts, Sigma 4, whatever it's called. I don't know how to use that, so I just see it. That stuff was incredibly valuable. So, all right. The stability pool, is it like a premium deficit on the market price, like Grayscale Trust? No, it's not. But it's interesting you say that, because I can see that. I can see how you came to that conclusion. But no, it doesn't work like that. You see, with companies like Grayscale, their fees. Imagine a company like Grayscale, the fees they get for giving you a financial opportunity. Imagine that the company didn't take that fee, but instead they gave it back to everybody else. People would be performing better, right? That might not be the best. That might not be the best analogy, but it's one. It's one. Yes, the stability pool is bringing liquidity into the contract itself, which will make Genius far more decentralized than any other cryptocurrency out there. Aha! So, decentralized exchanges have been known to gatekeep people. They've been known to shut out people who don't know how to use VPNs. So, like, for example, 1inch Exchange. 1inch is a great aggregator. 1inch is great. But if you're in the United States, you can't use 1inch. Well, what happens if you can't buy anything from Uniswap from the United States? Right? The demand for DeFi would be choked temporarily if Uniswap and PancakeSwap had to not allow their users, not allow people from the United States. Sure, us techie people, we know how to use a virtual private network. Just click some buttons, have an account with a company. Just far easier than it was in the past, of course, like everything. And then yeah, like I can use 1inch Exchange all I want. I imagine 1inch Exchange like, we need to figure out who the hell you are. No. So let's say something like that happened with Uniswap and PancakeSwap. All the other coins, people wouldn't be able to buy them or sell them. Liquidity people wouldn't be able to use it. I mean, obviously the community would come up with a solution, but with Genius's stability pool, you can use the Genius app itself to do these things. So no problem. Oh, and if your country says, we don't want innovation, you're not allowed to use that or we'll put you in jail. I mean, they're not going to do that. Instead, they're just going to block access to the Genius website. So download the Genius app onto your computer or even onto your phone. The app can be run from any web browser. So yeah, I mean, that's massively bullish. But won't that dilute the advanced miner returns? Well, you got to keep in mind, the collateral miner is an advanced miner. So it dilutes the advanced miner returns just like any other advanced miner dilutes the returns. So for example, let's say there's 10,000 advanced miners, right? And they're getting their share of the pie. Well, if another 100 advanced miners come, they're going to dilute all of our rewards. What the hell? This is the same problem that Hex has, but it's really not a problem. It's not a problem. If everyone is mining, if everyone is an advanced miner, the least everybody is going to perform is 4.36%. If that ever happens in the future, people who were earlier are going to have more shares, they're going to be happier. But if that ever happens, it's just going to be because Genius was such a massive success. And maybe that could take 10 years to get there. Maybe it could take 15 or 20. Excuse me. So it doesn't dilute the earnings. I put my water in my bag. It doesn't dilute the earnings. What it does do, though, is it gives liquidity, better liquidity also, besides the market, better price protection, more buying pressure on the open market, because it's a one-way arbitrage. You can buy in the open market and settle in the collateral pool, and then other incentives happen for people to put in more collateral. But you can't do it the other way around. You can't buy from the collateral pool at a discount because, its algorithm did it that way. You can't buy from it and then sell on the market. You have to do your time as an advanced miner, which is at least 90 days. Very purposely, 90 days was chosen. Very purposely. Has to do with like financial cycles and not big super cycles, but smaller cycles. And quarterly things, But it's strictly 90 days. But to continue with that, want to dilute the advanced miner returns. Collateral miners are paying a fee for that security. There might come a time where the only way people. So here's the thing. If everybody knew the best thing to do in Genius, people would only run your basic miners because of certain needs that they have. People would only run advanced miners because they would know for sure they were going to do the time. And people would only do collateral miners, well, to get a better deal. But at some point, being a collateralized miner, it could be the lesser option to do, especially with the contract, the stability pool contract offer rate for new Genius debt, for that offer rate. It's going to reach a point where it's not worth it for people. And there's a limit. The maximum amount you can use is, the maximum amount of collateral miners you can really have in the first place. There's a limit, and that's approximately 60% of the reserve supply of Genius. The reserve supply is everything. But when talking about dilution, remember the burning mechanics in Genius are a lot like Hex giving Hex to the origin address. And the origin address is just like, hey, I promise to hold on to this Hex and never sell it. Unless somebody has a gun to my head, or who knows what can happen. Those are imaginable horribles that we don't really need to think of. But what we can know is that any of this dilution that happens and the burnamentals that come with auctioning your collateral miner, or the burnamentals that come in with other things, the whole supply of Genius includes what was burnt. It does not include the debt that was settled. That's something that just like goes off into the vacuum of nowhere, sort of like being burned. But point is, this simulates compounding interest over time for the user. So does it dilute people? Having more miners will always dilute people. Yeah, having more miners will always dilute people. But you can only get to a certain amount of miners, right? You can't have it unlimited. There's only a certain amount of supply. And at that point, right, with all the simulations run and even with the endgame theory for it and the math, at that point where Genius is nothing but people mining, there are people who end early, there are people who end late, there's collateral that gets paid back, etc. These actions create a burned layer that basically pumps the I'm over here like, how do I explain this? Pumps the interest earnings. For example, if 4.2% per year is inflated, is rewards, That doesn't mean every miner makes 4.2%. That means that only the people who are mining make that 4.2%. And that calculation is based on a number that includes the burnt supply. So yeah, hope that makes sense. Don't want to get too much off track, but so a huge stability pool can just suck up most of the 4% yield. No, the stability pool can, whatever yield it sucks up, whatever yield it sucks up, whatever yield it sucks up, that is inevitably being feed. So the fee is the stability pool fee for doing that actually removes more of the inflation rewards than it gives. Wait, no, I don't think I said that right. But you asking that question are definitely a very intelligent person, and you'll get it with the white paper. But that's the first point. The second point is that the maximum that the stability pool can suck up well, it can't because this is additional. These are additional rewards, but percentage-wise, the most you can mint with Genius with the stability pool is 60%, about 60% of the reserve supply. So about 60% of the supply in circulation, the supply locked up, and the burn supply, right? So because of that, I'm going to do some math. I don't feel like doing math in my head. So that 4.236. Oops. So it comes out to like 2.6% extra annually. Annually, let me do it this way. And the settlement fee for settling this collateral is 1.6% every 180 days. So on a year, 3.2%. So think of it like 2.6%, 2.6% extra earnings, but minus 3 point something percent. Doesn't mean you as the miner pays for it. The public can pay for it, and the public will pay for it because of arbitrage opportunities. This is a big workflow chart, by the way. Ooh, maybe I can show you some of our workflow charts. The workflow charts that we've worked with in development are massive. They had to be well organized and broken down into many parts. So I hope that answers your question. I'm sure it will. And I can't wait for you all to see the beta. I can't wait for you all to see the new beta. And I can't wait for you all to read more about the stability pool and collateral miners. It's massive. It's, I think it's bigger news than Genius itself because, we've gotten used to the white paper. We've gotten used to what Genius is doing. But this thing here was kept as a surprise because, one, it's not as complex economically as Genius's tokenomics, which, yeah, they're complex, but they do things, right? It's actually simple, very simple. The hard part was how it would work with the tokenomics, how it would work with every aspect of the tokenomics, how it would be a good deal for everyone. That was the difficult part, but the only part about that was difficult wasn't discovering anything new, it was just like doing the math and having the right rules in place. Right rules in place such as collateral miners cannot end early. So that's one rule. Another rule is that, when miners are penalized for being late, for example, the other rule is that collateral cannot be redistributed to miners. The only thing that can be redistributed are the Genius rewards. So the collateral, instead of being redistributed, the debt gets burned, but the collateral stays there. So therefore, this rule made it so that it was another pumpamental for the offering, for the price, the public settlement rate for anybody buying on the open market to settle with this stability pool. All right. Heck yeah, I agree. It would be really good to get an infographic diagram for the workings of the stability pool. Yeah, it totally would be. I'll tell you what, the superficial diagram, like what the user would see, is super simple. It's it's you see a price that's lower, therefore user puts in collateral, user gets a miner in return. Right? Somebody from the public settles the debt, they get collateral back in return. That changes a lot of numbers and variables. I'll tell you what, the best thing is a spreadsheet. Um, um, a spreadsheet, I think it works really good. I think infographics will go really well. When I think about infographics, I keep thinking of Hex Factor. Hex Factor is awesome. Thank you, Hex Factor. All right. By the way, from this next question, it looks like this was misunderstood. The late advanced miner gets turned into a simple miner or basic miner. No, it doesn't. It doesn't get turned into one. It's just these are different ways of doing Genius that complement each other, very much like not like yin and yang, but like that three-sided yin and yang. Where there's like three things connecting together. Well, all right. So hey, this was a long one. Hope you all enjoyed this. Hope you all enjoyed hearing about the stability pool. I'm going to get this onto YouTube as soon as possible. It's probably take a while. This is going to be a massive file. 2 hours, 40 minutes. Yeah, all right. Well, I'll see if there's any extra questions here. What do you do if you can't use the restroom? You're doing a live stream that's like really long, right? Just kidding. All right, everybody. Hey, thank you so much. So, in summary here, the whole idea of Genius is to monetize attention and intention. There's incentives everywhere, monetize incentives. And Genius it's truly a financial masterpiece. The people that I've worked with over these last years, the people that entertained thoughts with me over the last 5 years, it's just amazing that the talent that came through. Clearly, the universe wants this to happen. Yeah, despite a lot of backlash from the crypto world, because let's face it, Bitcoin maxis, they don't want you to not use something other than Bitcoin because it makes their stuff less useful, right? Hex maxis, they don't want their bucket of funds to suffer. Well, one thing they can do is just not get left behind. Update your worldview, learn about newer products, and don't be afraid to use them. So, and that's where the use case with Genius is to be used. The whole idea of Genius is so anybody in the world can take an amount of value and derive passive income from it. This is going to help so many people in the world of savings, in the world of retirement, in the whole huge world of wanting passive income, and as well monetizing your time differently. Let's see. So yeah, the common issues that new cryptocurrencies have, every single one of them Genius has solved. And I say that from the point of view of myself working with many cryptocurrencies in the past to help them grow their ecosystem. Like a lot of people don't realize, even though Proton shares or Bit shares came out before Ethereum, why is it that Proton shares lost to Ethereum? Had a lot to do with onboarding. The first Ethereum wallet, you could deposit Bitcoin to it and get Ethereum. So problems were solved. So if you don't solve these problems as a coin, like BitShares, you end up getting left behind, and then you end up going to another project and calling it Steam. Or then you go to another project and you call it EOS, and then some other people form something called Wax and end up doing better than you. Because you have to solve these additional problems so that the users of Genius get the best utility from it. and get utility in what they want. Hyper focus on what they want. And that's all Genius is hyper focused on, are these things. And security audits, I look forward to seeing how it happens, how it's done. I tell you what, it was one of the best moves was getting an independent security auditor. Pay this person a lot of money. But I mean, that's how it is with this kind of stuff. And yeah, liquidity. Problem with liquidity solved. It's great. Genius community is still growing. I think the Genius community doubled in the last 2 weeks. So hey, with liquidity too, if you want to help us solve that liquidity, whales have incentivized. There's some pretty big whales, and actually there's some whales I haven't talked with yet that are more active in the community. Please reach out to me. If you're a whale, please reach out to me. I can tell you how you can help. But all of us whales, we recognize that, or I have faith that whales recognize that with any other whales in the system, you've got to realize that being a whale also is a problem, and you can turn that into a solution. And that's why Coinbase won't ever carry a coin where one entity owns 85% of the supply. Hex. Things can change with that though, because there's a lot of education that has to happen, and a lot of trust. And I hope it does, because after all, I'm part of the 5555 club. I call it Quad 5. Everybody calls it 5555. I call it Quad 5. But you know what? Screw that noise. Genius is on the way, man. Genius is coming out September 9th. I have to think about it. I keep thinking 9/9. I'm like, what month is that? All right, so security, it's been a big thing here. Oh man, and all these other coins out there, people have sacrificed, but like everybody's sacrifice hasn't amounted to anything yet. So Genius is like what? The first sacrifice that actually gets launched? That's cool. And let me remind you, the largest sacrifice, except for Pulse Chain and Pulse X, which did show new ways of doing cool things. Yeah, Genius, the only thing that is up since March is 50x. And everybody's talking about Hedron's recent gains, but I think Hedron's down since March, May. Yeah. Development, I mean, we've got so much stuff. So next thing here, keep a lookout for the tweets. I'm gonna tweet constantly. This is what I really want to do. There are so many pumpamentals of Genius. I'm gonna tweet all of them, and they'll also be part of the what is it called? White paper. Yeah. So look out for the white paper later this week. Look out for a beta possibly tomorrow. Check out that stability pool. You're all gonna really like it a lot. And thank you so much for watching. What am I doing here? I'm gonna shut these things down, but I don't want to lose any of the recordings. So thank you for watching, and everybody have a good night, have a good day. Thank you for helping with the community. The community has grown tremendously. There's more news articles on a coin that's right around the corner being launched, released. The price on Binance Smart Chain is higher. But where is that? Where is that? There's this article came out. It's called Genius, the Hex Killer. Whoa. That's spicy. Some Hexicans are going to get really pissed off about that. The Chinese community, the Chinese world, can benefit so much from Genius. So hey, if any of you watching that, if any of you watching that, you speak Chinese, that'd be cool. 如果你们会说中文，告诉我，加我的 community and let us know. There's a Chinese community room as well. I have done some. I used to speak Mandarin Chinese fluently and read it last time I had like a full day conversation though was like 6, 7 years ago, but it's been coming back to me. Um, but yeah, any of you who know American-born Chinese or Chinese who are born in the United States or in other countries in Europe, yeah, this is something that everyone in humanity can really, really use. So, all right. Hey, thank you so much. Everybody have a good night.